Reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. On that day, as evening drew on, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us cross to the other side." Leaving the crowd, they took Jesus with them in the boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. A violent squall came up, and waves were breaking over the boat, so that it was already filling up. Jesus was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. They woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" He woke up, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Quiet, be still." The wind ceased, and there was great calm. Then he asked them, "Why are you terrified? Do you not yet have faith?" They were filled with great awe and said to one another, "Who then is this whom even the wind and the sea obey?" The Gospel of the Lord. Someone said to me that this is a perfect gospel for Father's Day. Jesus is in a boat with a cushion and takes a nap. My brothers and sisters, a few months after I moved back here to St. Isidore, I celebrated a funeral mass back in my own parish of Immaculate Conception in Elmhurst. The family chose the gospel we just heard this morning for the funeral mass. The unusual thing was that this reading is now one of the options offered for a funeral mass. Let me tell you the story. It was a Saturday afternoon in October, and I was here in church to celebrate the Saturday 5 p.m. Mass. And my cell phone rang, and I saw the call was from the principal of Immaculate Conception High School. Since it wasn't time for Mass to begin yet, I took the call in the vesting sacristy in the back of the church. The message was that one of the theology teachers at the high school, Jane, and also a parishioner of the parish, was now at Elmhurst Hospital with her husband. He had just been admitted to the intensive care unit, and things did not look good. When I was at IC, I did a lot of things with her for her freshman and sophomore theology classes. So I explained to the principal that I needed to celebrate the Mass here, and then I would go to the hospital to be with her. I celebrated the 5 p.m. Mass here and then got into my car immediately after it was over and went to Elmhurst Hospital. Since I had been in Elmhurst for 11 years, I knew the layout of the old hospital fairly well and parked as close to the intensive care section as possible. I found Jane and her sons in the family waiting room of the intensive care unit. She thanked me for coming and then said that she needed to spend some time with her sons and with their dad, and then she'd send for me. So after a few moments with her husband and their dad, a nurse came to get me. I prayed with them and anointed their dad. He died about an hour later. He had come for some procedure to the hospital that morning with some minor complaints. Something went wrong, and now he was gone. A few days later, I returned to Elmhurst to celebrate his funeral. I had a meeting with Jane and her sons before the Mass, and she selected the readings. I told her that this gospel was not part of the regular offerings for the funeral. She asked me to trust her and then allow her to share some words of remembrance at the end of the Mass. So I agreed. Following the closing prayer, Jane came forward to the pulpit for her words of remembrance. She thanked all those who were there and who had been a support for her during those days following her husband's death. And then she asked if she could share some thoughts with her sons. She went on to say that God never promised us that life would be fair. God never said that if we believe, there would be smooth sailing. God only promised that whatever we have to face, He would be with us. She went on to assure them that there would be good times and difficult times. Storms will come up when we least expect and often at the worst moments. But when they do, when you find yourself in the darkest night, when your boat is being tossed about in the waves and it looks like you're going down, be sure to invite Jesus to get into your boat. Consciously ask Jesus to get into your boat with you, for with Him in your boat, you will make it to the other side. I, along with everyone else at that funeral mass, were amazed at her faith. Here she was, a woman in midlife who had unexpectedly and suddenly lost her husband and the father of her sons, teaching her sons that no matter how bad the storm, whenever they come up, be sure to invite Jesus to get into your boat. It was in a very encouraging moment, a moment that I will never forget. Jane was right. God never promised us that life would be fair. God never said, obey the commandments, and then everything would be smooth sailing. Storms may suddenly come up at the worst moments of our lives. But when they do, be sure to invite Jesus to get into our boat. And then allow Him to calm the storms, and we will make it to the other shore. When we think back over the past 15 months, how have we made it to this point? Because Jesus was in our boat. It was a dark period. There were storm after storm after storm. We truly felt the pain of isolation. But we had Jesus in our boat, and we made it now to the other side. And so hearing this gospel this morning truly does invite us to believe that once Jesus is in our boat, He can calm any storm that we may have to face. So now let's stand and respond with our profession of faith.